Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to IBMF's VetNet webinars. I hope you and your families are well and healthy. In partnership with Hire Heroes USA, we are happy to bring you our sixth Employer Spotlight session. Today with us on a panel, we have employers from Bank of the West, Amazon Web Services, Instant Teams, and Jacobs. My name is Elvis Savdic, and I am Post-Program Support Services Advisor here at IBMF at Syracuse University. In my role, I help our IBMF program graduates with services and connections to help them grow or start their business ventures or careers. Moderating our session today is Brianna Morales. She's an employer engagement specialist, veteran recruiter, and employer training specialist at Hire Heroes USA. But before we start, I just want to go over some ground rules. This session is being recorded, and all of you that have registered for this session will get a recorded link along with the survey. So please take a survey, let us know how we did and what other future webinars you would like to see. If you would like to ask questions during this webinar, please type them in the chat box. You can find the chat box at the bottom right if you expand the control panel, the purple arrow, and hit the chat bubble. That being said, I'm gonna pass it over to Brianna Morales to introduce herself and our guest panelists. Brianna, welcome.
Thank you, Elvis. As he mentioned, my name is Brianna Morales, and I am an employer engagement specialist with Hire Heroes USA. So that basically means that I'm connecting our candidates to our partnered employers, like those here today, through talent sourcing and email campaigns. I'm the only civilian in my family. I was born and raised on Fort Bragg, North Carolina. My mom, my dad, both of my brothers, and my grandparents served in the military. So I wound up back in the veteran sphere anyways. We thank you for coming in today. I do have a bachelor's degree in international studies, and I have been doing this for 5 years in total in terms of employment support. We're going to go ahead and get started and start off with our introductions. So if you can pull up Amaris's bio, please. Amaris is a program manager working with Amazon Web Services and their technical apprenticeship program for military veterans and spouses. She has been working with military apprenticeship programs at Amazon for over 3 years in multiple capacities. She started off by recruiting military veterans and spouses to join the program and now manages cohorts of software development, systems development, and support engineer apprentices. As a military veteran herself, she understands how difficult it is to join the civilian world and finds passion in providing veterans and spouses with opportunities to demonstrate their skill sets and aptitude to learn. She served for 5 years in the Army as a human intelligence collector, serving in South Korea, Afghanistan, and JBLM. Next, we have Suzanne. She currently works as the team and business development specialist for Instant Teams. So she guides customer companies through the process of building and scaling fully distributed customer service teams with military connected workforce. As an Air Force veteran and Army spouse, Suzanne is passionate about connecting companies with the military community and solving business needs. She excels in business development, intelligence analysts, and operational planning. Suzanne holds a Bachelor's of Science in Dietetics, which means nutrition, from Texas Women's University. When she is not working, you'll find her running and hanging out with her family. She believes that being a military spouse should not mean giving up all that you wish to accomplish in your professional life. Nicole Hernandez served 5 years in the United States Marine Corps as an 0411 maintenance specialist, serving with the 1st Radio Battalion and 6th Motor T Battalion. She transitioned into the civilian sector as a teacher and found her passion years later recruiting in recruiting and assisting veterans in secure civilian employment. Currently, she works as a recruiter for Bank of the West, specializing in diversity hiring and headquartered in San Francisco, California, with a presence in over 24 states and over $91.5 billion in assets. Jose is a 7-year Marine Corps veteran who values the military community tremendously and has spent his years post-military by helping transitioning service members and veterans find a meaningful and fulfilling career path. Jose chose to use his military transition journey to help other veterans succeed where he found shortcomings, which led him to the staffing industry. Currently, Jose is a senior intelligence and IT recruiter with Jacobs Technology. He started his recruiting career in Southern California back in 2015 and then relocated to Tampa, Florida in 2017 with a background of over 5 years in talent acquisition, specializing in aerospace, biomedical, finance, and DoD. His primary focus at Jacobs is to place intelligence analysts, developers, engineers, and manufacturing professionals. So welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming. I'd like to start off with Amaris. What would you like to add to your bio? What is important and what has your experience been?
Yeah, sure thing. So thank you, Brianna. I think my biggest thing is the transition coming out of the military, right? That's why we're all here. I think that's why we are all passionate about bringing veterans and linking them with these right opportunities. It was a crazy time for me. I was actually out of, I didn't have a place to live for about a month. It was such a stressful time. And for me, my biggest passion bringing you guys and connecting you to these opportunities is making sure that you don't have to struggle through that and you have a clean and smooth transition coming from the military, that you don't have months of unemployment, and have to struggle through that, and make sure that you have somewhere where you can advance your career. So I am really, truly passionate about that. And as soon as I got out of the military, I knew that I wanted something to do with that. So hopefully we can get you guys some good information today.
Thank you. That's a great point. Nicole, what about you?
Yeah, thanks, Brianna. I kind of echoing what everyone has been saying. I transitioned out in 2010, and we didn't really have as many resources as we do now. So I'm hoping to share, I think, all the trials and tribulations we've gone through as transitioning veterans with the lack of resources to avoid all those issues and all those mistakes that we did, so people don't have to encounter that again.
That's very full circle of you. Thank you. I appreciate that. What about you, Suzanne?
So I think for me, the transition from being an active duty military and then going and becoming a military spouse posed all kinds of new problems that I didn't really anticipate. And I really got to feel the pressure from both sides. I think one of the biggest things is being able to find a company that you can truly pour your core values that are just ingrained in you from that active duty time. It can be a big struggle if you can't find that company that aligns with that. It can almost leave you feeling unfulfilled. And I think that's one of the biggest hurdles.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that we'll discuss today is how important culture is and you being happy at your job. It's something that I think people think about when they join the military, which branch is the best fit for their beliefs and their values and how they want to be challenged. The same way in the civilian workforce, you choose a company that best fits with you. Jose, what is your thought?
I'm sorry, can you guys still hear me? I got disconnected and had to reconnect.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, awesome. Sorry, so I didn't catch that question. My apologies.
That's fine. So we're kind of continuing our introduction. I know in your introduction it mentioned how you wanted to do better for the next generation. You found issues in your transition and you wanted to make it easier on other service members. So I wanted to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, awesome. So when I got out, it was really difficult for many reasons. My experience didn't transfer very well into the private sector. So I found myself sending hundreds of applications and not getting a call back. I know looking back now, when I look at my resume, from when I got out of the military to what my resume looks like now, it is very different. I think most service members, when we transition out, we utilize terminology that we use in the military, and sometimes what employers want to see is actual metrics or percentage. How many people did you supervise, the budgets that you worked with.
So I really enjoy talking to all veteran and military spouses on how to get the resume out there and get someone to call them back, right? That's the hardest part, I think, that I've learned from helping individuals, not just veterans, find work. And then some of the struggles I had when I was looking for work is just getting someone to call you back or send you an email saying, you know, unfortunately, you're not the right fit due to this or whatever. You want some type of feedback. So that's the reason why I decided to stay in the staffing industry for so long. And I'm so willing to help any veteran or anyone in general who reaches out through LinkedIn or any other media source to help find employment.
I agree. I feel the same way. I was unemployed for 6 months, and I had already dabbled in career counseling and recruiting, and I had enjoyed it. And it was so frustrating to say, hey, I've got this skill set as though someone who helps other people get jobs. How do I get a job myself? But when you're unemployed and rejected over and over and over again, it's hard to have the confidence to advocate for yourself. There was definitely a period where I started getting a sense of relief because I was tossing my resume out there to anyone and everyone. And so I kind of reached a point where I was like, oh, I got a rejection letter. That meant that they actually saw my application. They actually saw me from the black hole. It got there. So I think we're all on the same page here. We're here because we've been there. We've experienced the frustrations and the anxieties of being unemployed and having all this great experience, but not being able to properly advocate for yourself and then to convince an employer that you are worth it. So the question I think that's on everyone's mind, we're going to start off with COVID-19. How has it impacted the hiring at your company today? Where are you at with that? And then if you are impacted in a negative way, how should veterans and military spouses adjust their strategy to be able to gain a job during this time? So we'll start with you, Nicole.
Yeah, so I would say for Bank of the West, we are honestly just business as usual. We're continuously hiring at the high volume that we typically do. The only real change for us has been our strategy for onboarding and our strategy for new hires. So we've moved to a platform where it's a little more remote now. So first day, typically candidates would come in, if possible, receive their IT equipment, do some first day activities, such as I-9, things like that, meet the hiring manager, and then for the most part, most lines of business support them going home, training them remotely. So for us, honestly, it is business as usual, just switching to a remote platform at this time.
So if a veteran is on the call right now and they're interested in working for Bank of the West, is there anything that they should change? Is the timeline slower for actually obtaining employment? Should they be prepared to come in and then learn at home?
Correct. So I would say our process may have been slowed down a bit just because hiring managers are taking a little bit longer to review resumes, applications. As recruiters, we still have to reach out to them, screen them, have an introductory conversation. So I would say it probably slowed down by a couple of days, but it isn't anything where I know other companies have completely put all their requisitions on hold. For us, I would just say an additional couple of days.
Thank you. That's good news to hear. Suzanne, what about you guys at Instant Team?
Well, we are pretty unique in that we are fully distributed. Every one of our internal team members is remote, and we only work remote. So we are in the position where we are actually ramping up quite a bit, and we are still hiring, building teams, and serving customers. So with everybody going to this remote workforce, we're definitely actually growing in this environment.
Thank you. And Jose?
So here at Jacobs, business is continuing as usual, to be honest. The one thing that has slowed down is the onboarding and interview process. So prior to all this happening, we would schedule interviews from the moment we've sent a qualified candidate to the manager. The manager will get back to us probably within 24 hours and schedule a phone interview. Now, because of all this, since they're putting on multiple fires and they just have so much on their plate, it goes from the moment we send a resume into the manager, it might take 3 or 4 days to schedule an interview, And then the onboarding process, when we actually extend an offer to someone, is the one that has, we've extended some time on there. Typically, we can extend an offer within 2 to 3 days. Prior to all this happening, now it's taken about a week and a half, just because we do have to get director approval for any candidate starting. But other than that, everything is still business as usual. We're interviewing the same amount of people. We still have openings. The only challenge sometimes is when we get people that are going to be working on base to get their CAC card, which we're trying to, that's the only thing that they really have to go on base for. And then most of the work we have, our employees are able to work from home, which is a good thing. And I know a lot of our DoD clients said it was impossible to do prior to this, but we have, I think, 80% of our workforce working remotely from home. So I think after we come out of this, it's going to open their eyes in regards to, we can do this same type of work and be as productive from home or in a secured area.
I agree with that statement. I first off, I want to say that's a message of hope for everyone listening today. These 4 companies are still business as usual. They're adapting. That does not mean that this is a vacation for everyone. Let's keep applying. Let's keep researching. Let's keep networking. This is not a time to give up. So first off, awesome. Glad to hear that. Secondly, I agree. I think that when you're looking for a company that is a good fit for you, you should think, okay, well, during this time, how are companies bouncing back? Are they furloughing all their employees? Are they letting them all go? Or is there job stability? And are you able to say, oh, well, they realized that the meeting could have been an email, or the meeting could have been over Zoom, right? It didn't have to be canceled because we're not physically there. I know at Hire Heroes USA, I'm very grateful. We are providing our services anyways virtually. We provide the resumes and career counseling and opportunities over the phone and over the computer. And we went into an office, but once everything started happening, we all started working from home. And we haven't had a disruption in services, which I'm incredibly grateful and relieved for. So when you're job searching, go ahead and look at their social media right now. See, check a few websites to see who's still hiring and who's not. We'll send some links out afterwards, or you can look on LinkedIn. We Hire Heroes USA and the IVMF. We've been posting a lot of good information about what companies are still hiring during these times. Pay attention and try to focus your job search on those who have that stability and that flexibility in an agile environment. So our next question is, what are the benefits that you see in hiring veterans and military spouses? What is it that they are bringing to the table that maybe their civilian counterparts are not? We can start with Suzanne this time.
Yeah, that is one of my favorite questions, because truly, when you take anybody who has been exposed to the military life, there's a level of diversity and resiliency that nobody else possesses. And we can ebb and flow quicker than anybody you will ever meet. And so I really urge veterans to not sell themselves short with that, to really let employers know, and there's a lot of resources to help you translate those skills that you've developed from no notice moves, and skills that you developed from, I remember the last hurricane, my husband was like, okay, I have to evacuate aircraft, it's you and the kids to evacuate, and I'm like, okay, take care of it. And so there's ways to convey that to employers, but that is something that not everybody in the civilian world has ever experienced or possessed. So I would say, make sure as a veteran you don't sell yourself short.
That's great. Thank you. Nicole?
Yeah, so for me, I would say it's really important for me as an individual and as a recruiter, and I think my entire team feels the same way, is to not only leverage but embrace the unique opportunities that military and their spouses have had, but their diverse backgrounds as well. I think it's extremely important to communicate that to hiring managers and on a resume, but most importantly, to effectively communicate that. Just like the story that was just told about having to evacuate quickly, how do you actually put that into a resume? How does that resonate with the hiring manager, and how will the hiring manager actually understand what that means? So I think as a recruiter, for me, I take those experiences and I kind of form a story when I see it on a resume. I reach out to candidates, I chat with them about their background, their experience, their skill set. And then I do truly form that story that I try to convey to hiring managers. So for me, it's just embracing those different experiences that they've had in their truly unique background, and see how that can be incorporated into corporate America.
I think that's a great point. I think one of our goals is to educate employers, because sometimes they think of veterans as either they're a hero or they're a victim, and there's nothing in between, right? It's not the barber that's cutting your hair. It's not your recruiter at your new job. It's not your pastor or your mail carrier. The veterans are everywhere, right? So I think it's important that you guys already have that perspective of what a veteran is, so that way you can jump into those questions and making sure that you're able to identify those skills and their strengths quickly. When other recruiters were providing that training, so that way they know how to ask the right questions to find out how quickly you evacuated, or what you accomplished under minimal guidance or with minimal resources. So that's a great point. Amaris, what are your thoughts?
Absolutely. So if anyone's ever looked up Amazon, our culture is very leadership principle oriented. So we have 14 leadership principles. And when I started off as an industry recruiter in the tech world, it's really hard to find a veteran, for example, to fill a software development engineer role coming straight out of the military. You know, that's very unlikely to happen. But what managers would come back and tell us is, I wish there was a way, because those leadership principles are so strong coming from our veterans and those military spouses. We want that. Bias for action is one of our leadership principles, and you know, I've sat in for the last 3 years on tons of debriefs after interviews, and heard managers say, you know, this person provided an example of this time that they were in combat, and you know, they had to make a quick decision, and you know, to those managers that translates as, if you have a quick business decision you need to make, you're ready to make it, and you are informed, and you know what decision to make, and you have that bravery and that courage to make it, right? And you have that confidence, so they see that and they want to use it. So if I'm gonna put in a little nugget of wisdom there, it's just to not shy away from that experience. I think a lot of people tend to take their military experience and say, let me find what corporate experience I can find. You know, let me get examples that are outside of my military career. But no, these for us, our hiring managers are absolutely fascinated by what you can do and the culture fit that you align with Amazon well. So that's kind of where we're at. Leadership principles, you bring all of that to the table, and we like to see it.
I'm glad to hear that. I feel like it's sometimes surprising for civilians without a lot of education on veterans, how quickly you gain experience in leadership. You can be in the military for a few weeks in basic training or boot camp, and you're already in charge of maybe 2 or 3 people, right? You're already monitoring, making sure that they're falling into line when you're marching. There are things that start very early on, whereas you can be a civilian in the civilian workforce and not have any aspect of leadership for 10, 15 years. So I think leadership is always going to be a great point. Jose, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think both of you guys had a lot of really good points to make when it comes to any recruiter I've met who was a prior veteran or a military spouse, someone who understands how the military works. They've always been very successful in regards to staffing, for the reason that you said, Brianna, that you understand how to get the answers to some of these questions to be a good fit for that opportunity. Sometimes it is hard to find, like a software engineer in the military. Fortunately, for myself here at Jacobs, a lot of the military has IT-focused opportunities.
I think we lost you, Jacob.
To be able to support the DoD space. So I think the fact that everyone here understands what veterans and military spouses have to offer, we are all about helping you find jobs. So just as an example, here at Jacobs, we hired a logistics specialist who did nothing when it comes to logistics in the military, but he really wanted to do that when he transitioned out. And I took the extra time to understand and ask the key and critical questions to see if he knows at least the basics of how to do logistics. and I present him to the manager with all his experience he had, and we were able to get him that position here at Jacobs. So that's a great thing about organizations like ourselves. Like everyone here is a part of that. We'll take the time to listen and understand, and whatever role you guys want to do, at least I know, speaking for myself, I will try to either connect you with someone in my network or fight for you with the managers here on site to see if we can at least get an interview so they can at least speak to you and try to make that possible.
That's fantastic, Jose. And that brings us to our next question, which is kind of looking at your internal hiring practices. How do you balance the desires that they have, right? Their skills and their experience versus their capacity to learn and grow and change, and what attributes are they bringing to the table that are desirable? I'm laughing when you guys keep talking about people coming out of the military without software development experience. I'm sourcing on the back end, and employers are asking me for recently transitioned software developers, and I'm like, where? We don't have that military occupation specialty. How am I going to find them? So there are purple squirrels in that sense. But how do you balance the skills and experiences versus traits and potential? And we'll continue with you.
So most of the positions I work here at Jacobs are very IT focused. Intel, it's kind of either you have it or you don't, unfortunately. Most of the positions we have within Intel, either you were in the Army, all-source analyst, or SIG or geospatial, right? I don't want to say you can't really learn that. I'm sure I've talked to a handful of individuals who went to universities and majored in geospatial or working with the same type of software that someone in the Intel space utilized, right? But it's not the same, unfortunately. When it comes to IT, I've taken individuals that were system administrators in all branches of military and focused them on getting specific certifications depending on if they want to be software or network administrators or software or network engineers or cybersecurity positions, right? So I know with a lot of organizations out there, veterans can get certs sometimes for free, sometimes they utilize their GI Bill. So really understanding what they want to do. For me here at Jacobs, if someone's looking to get into IT and they have no experience whatsoever, I typically have them start off as a PC tech or a help desk position for at least a year, so you can have that solid understanding of what that individual does, and then try to understand what direction you want to go from there, and then focus on your certifications. Because in the IT space, that's the biggest thing, right, is getting those certs that are required, or you can go down the traditional route of getting IT degree in a 4-year college. So it's just really understanding what that person wants to do, and kind of giving them some options of what they can achieve in a certain period of time. Because everyone here probably understands, if you spent at least 3+ years in the military, you have leadership, you have worked multiple budgets. So most people I talk to, especially senior leaders, both enlisted and officers, they always want to focus on project management, which is a great career path to go down. But obviously, at least what I've seen now, most companies want someone who has a PMP and stuff like that. So that goes back to all the certs, but just really understanding what they're passionate about and what they want to do. And then I always just try to give them as much advice as possible on how to achieve that specific goal.
So it seems like it's industry specific. If you want to do logistics, maybe we can switch over. But if you're wanting to get into software development and have no experience, it's highly unlikely that you would start off unless you were going into one of those apprenticeship programs, which we'll discuss in just a moment. But I do want to note for our audience, there is a great way for you to receive free certifications through Onward to Opportunity and the IVMF. So if you'd like to, if you're not enrolled already, go ahead and check out their website. They have a list of certificates that they will support you through the education and cover the fee for the test. So they have, if you're interested in IT, they have your Security Plus, your CCNA, your CISP, your Network Plus, variety of IT certificates. In addition, they have human resources, so your senior professional in human resources. They have project management, the PMP is offered. So if you're going to put in the time, thank you, Anthony. If you're going to put in the time to transition into a new career, I highly recommend you look into, thank you everyone in the chats, providing those links. It's a great way for you to obtain those certificates, and you can do that before you transition out, and you can do that afterwards. So that's a great way for you to come into a new organization with that civilian equivalency. Amaris, I feel like you're ready to talk about apprenticeships and how to do that balance.
Absolutely, I am. So a couple things that I just wanted to start off with, kind of to piggyback on what Jose had to say, not to use a military term that everybody hates, but piggyback. So first and foremost, I feel like for IT roles, like he mentioned in AWS, there is that strict, these are basic qualifications that you just have to have. We can't lower the bar on it. But that being said, don't be afraid to take that job that's a little bit more entry level, that has those, that you meet those basic qualifications and move your way up. When we interview, we strongly interview. It's a very strict balance between leadership principles. We go down the leadership principles. We ask you questions related to them, and we discuss based off of your strength, the strength of your answers for your leadership principles, right? As well as we do the functional assessment, make sure that you meet all those basic qualifications that you have on your resume. But what I will say is sometimes if maybe you kind of under-index a little bit on a skill set, maybe it's not your strongest, yeah, you meet the basic qualification. If you really come in with a really strong examples and really strong interviews with your leadership principles, sometimes they're willing to mitigate that, right? So if maybe you have on your resume, sure, you got the certification, but you're not a Linux expert, you got the Linux, they're asking for Linux experience, whatever the case may be, you got the cert, you're not super comfortable with it, come in and express that. One of our leadership principles is learn and be curious. Show that you have that desire to learn and to go out of your way and spend some hours studying on your own to learn and catch up. That press managers on our end. So keep that in mind. That's kind of how we balance. But yeah, bringing in the apprenticeship programs. We do have programs across Amazon, but particularly for me, it's apprenticeship, where we just interview you based off of your leadership principles. There may be some small requirement depending on the level of role that you're trying to get into. If you want to be a software developer, for example, maybe we need you to have a STEM degree. So you have a 4-year degree in finance, that's a STEM degree, and look at that, now all of a sudden you're being interviewed for a job just based off of your character, right? And just based off of those leadership principles to get you into something that'll ramp you up into that role. So there are multiple opportunities. Just keep an eye out, be open to different things, be open to programs, open to entry-level positions as well.
That's a great point. I think that it's always encouraging to hear that you're being evaluated on your leadership, because that's one of the #1 strengths that a service member is going to have. So that's great to hear that they might need to come down a few steps and take a more entry-level job, but then work your way up. And I will say within Hire Heroes USA, it's similar. We tend to hire at a certain level, and then you can work your way up into a different specialty or into a different leadership program, but most people start off at the same point. So I feel like that's a great way to kind of check where you are in the military and then into your next job. Suzanne, what about you?
So truthfully, be it that we are 100% distributed in a remote workforce, one of the biggest things is having those digital skills and just being ready to work. And I love what Amara said about taking that entry-level position and getting your foot in the door and showing people just how good you are. I really feel like if you can master just those basic digital skills and be able to work remotely, that you can go very far very quickly. And so it's really a balance on both sides about being teachable but already having just a basic level of those skills. So think about, all of the apps you have on your phone. If you're able to download an app and maneuver it very quickly and pick up how to perform these different sites and things of that nature, then it's very likely that you can seamlessly transition into the remote careers.
That's good to hear. I like it. I agree. I think that I'm going to ask in just a minute, but I want you guys to be thinking about how can we put this onto a resume. So Nicole, how do you balance it in terms of what they already have and what you need?
Yeah, so for me, it's really having that conversation with the hiring manager as soon as I have an open position. It's saying, okay, I understand your needs and your wants, but are you willing and are you open to a candidate who maybe doesn't have 100% of the experience, but they have the resilience, the adaptation, the eagerness to grow, to perform, and to develop both personally and professionally. For me, that goes a very long way because that's kind of how I broke into the recruiting industry. My background was a teacher. And how did I transition into recruiting? But I think it's just that one hiring manager that saw the potential in me. And for me, potential goes a very long way. So just like Jose said, there are positions where my hiring managers are like, look, I'm looking for a senior quantitative analyst. Unless they have 100% of that background, I can't take somebody entry level. And that's completely okay. And then I have some senior financial analyst role or just financial analyst roles where the hiring managers say, as long as they have a degree in finance or they've done something in finance, I'm open and willing to interview them. And that to me is a foot in the door. If I can get your resume in front of a hiring manager and they're willing to interview you, now the rest of the way is on the individual, right? And being able to quantify their information. And I talk to my hiring managers a lot about transferable skills for military members and spouses. And a lot of times, again, back to the education portion, right? A hiring manager doesn't really understand how your time overseas is really applied to the civilian sector, but having that list of transferable skills communicated to them up front and being able to talk about it and walk them through your trajectory, I think is extremely important as well.
Thank you. I think that's a good point. One of the things that I like when I'm looking at job descriptions is when the employer says bachelor's degree and 2 years of experience, or an associate's degree and 4 years or 6 years of experience, or a master's degree and no experience, or equivalent military experience. And I'm like, yay, we can get people in this way, right? Because at the end of the day, I'm not more qualified than my dad for a job if we both have the same background. If I have a bachelor's degree and he has 20 years of experience, right? It doesn't make sense if you've got so much experience in the military and you have so much knowledge, but not a degree, that you wouldn't be able to move forward. So I'm seeing that trend. I'm enjoying that trend. And I like that that it seems like you guys are all flexible in some areas. I understand I would not want an entry-level person providing my surgery or giving me their first cut. So there's certain areas where you might want to have more experience, and there's other areas where there is some flexibility and grace. So I wanted to see, because I think people here today are also interested in why your company. So I wanted to hear, why did you choose to work for your company, and then why have you stayed as a veteran? So let's kind of plug your companies in there. We can start with Jose.
Awesome. So, I did another virtual job fair over the weekend, and someone asked this exact question in regards to how do you find a company that has great camaraderie, teamwork, has high values. So the way I selected Jacobs, to be very honest, is I came from one of those traditional really big staffing firms prior to this, and we were getting work, 10, 11 hours a day sometimes, no work-life balance. It was just very stressful, very metrics driven. But I always gravitated to veterans for some reason. I would always connect with them at a different level. I was really passionate about helping them find work. My coworkers there would be like, Jose likes to pick up stray cats, is what they would say when I would bring them someone that I was like, you have to get this guy a job or this woman a job. She's so great. She has this many years of experience. So once I learned that I wanted to focus on the veteran community, I started looking at all the staffing firms or companies that we worked with at this staffing firm, and I started looking on Facebook, LinkedIn, started connecting with individuals at those organizations and asking how do they like working for company A, B, and C, do they have good work-life balance and stuff like that. And that's honestly how I picked Jacobs, to be very honest, is I connected with other recruiters within the organization. I connected with HR professionals and senior managers at Jacobs, and everyone took the time to either message me back on LinkedIn, or they would say, you know, hey, Jose, I'm not the right person for this question in particular. Reach out to so-and-so. They'll be more than happy to help you. So that's how I picked Jacobs, is because I saw that they were willing to take the time to respond and add me to the LinkedIn network. And if they weren't the person who can help me, they directed me to someone who could. So now that I've been with the company, going on 7 months now, it truly feels like a family. We're all about helping each other. And anytime I find a veteran that might not meet all the checklists that the manager's looking for, at least to take the time to interview them, or they'll say, hey, he's not a good fit for our team, but send him to, you know, so-and-so at this other team. He might be a good fit there. So the fact that we are willing to entertain stay with them for many years to come.
Okay, I think that's wonderful. And how long was the process from you kind of putting those feelers out there on LinkedIn and starting to network versus you getting a hire? How long was that process?
Great question. So honestly, it took me about 6 months for me to find an opportunity within the talent acquisition team at Jacobs. I would send out probably 10 to 15 messages to multiple individuals on any given day, to multiple companies, right, to see who would respond. So for everyone listening, don't get frustrated. It is a numbers game, unfortunately, but the fact that we have LinkedIn and so many other platforms that we can network as a community, as friends, as coworkers, it makes a big difference compared to when, you know, I got out back in 2008, or where other individuals got out, you know, 15, 20 years prior. It was more difficult to network. Now it's at a click of a button. You know, I'm on the LinkedIn app 24/7. I get notifications constantly throughout the day, and I am always willing to respond to someone, no matter if I feel like they're a great fit or not. If I can help them in any way or connect with another individual within my network, I'm all about doing that. So don't be afraid to put a question out there on LinkedIn or say, hey, I'm looking for a project manager role in Tampa, or whatever it is. You'll be surprised how the LinkedIn community and other networks as well will give you advice and point you in the right direction.
So I want to put a plug out for LinkedIn real quick. Sometimes we have service members that are like, oh no, OPSEC, I can't have a LinkedIn profile. I had a security clearance, I can't do that. But you are working for a defense contractor. You got your job through LinkedIn, through networking on LinkedIn, and you still work in recruiting through LinkedIn. So keep that in mind. If some of you feel that it is a bit dangerous, you can obviously monitor how much information you put out there, but LinkedIn is a good idea. Nicole, how long did it take you to get into Bank of the West, and then why did you choose them, and why have you stayed?
Yeah, so I think my story is a little bit unique. So I relocated from California to Arizona about 4 years ago. I took a couple of months off to get to know the area and truly focus on what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to do recruiting, but I didn't really know how to get into it. I put, just like everybody, tons of applications out there. And I think my story truly reflects what Veterans Looking Out for Veterans is like. I had applied for just a simple administrative assistant position with Bank of the West. I got very lucky, and my first interview was with the senior vice president, who happened to be an Army reservist for about 25 years. So he sat me down. We literally chatted for almost 2 hours. And he said, you know what, I don't think you're a good fit for my admin role, and I think I might have it fit. I may already have it filled. Of course, I was completely bummed. I said, I thought this went well. We chatted for 2 hours, but he said, you know what, I know you can do great things for the bank. So hang tight. I'm going to find you a role. I would say within a week and a half, I had a call from someone on the recruiting team and interviewed for them. So again, just proves my point. that sometimes it's not always about your experience, but it's about your transferable skills. And I will tell you, when I transitioned out of the military, I struggled a lot. I was a civilian contractor for a while. I just bounced around from job to job, never keeping it more than a year because I couldn't find the camaraderie. I couldn't find the teamwork. I couldn't find the at-home feeling that I had in the military. And so far, I've been with the bank for 4 years, and I absolutely love it. I stay because the recruiter that interviewed me, he sat down and said, okay, tell me about you. So of course I go through my resume. He stops me. He says, no, I want to know about Nicole Hernandez. Tell me about you. What do you do in your spare time? What are you passionate about in life? And it was an hour interview of just about me, which I had never had ever. A recruiter or just a hiring manager asked me about myself, and now, you know, for 4 years I've been with a team I absolutely love. They're devoted to each other, to what we do as a bank, and that's truly what keeps me here, the camaraderie within my team.
That's wonderful. And Suzanne, what about you?
I'm going to go a little deeper into my background because I think that a lot of veterans will resonate. But I spent about 3 years unemployed. And I left active duty, was a military spouse. My husband flies nights, so he didn't work a 9 to 5. It was all me taking the kids to daycare and things of that nature. And I found that, you know, I didn't join the military until I was 28 years old. I had an entire career before that. So jump ahead 7 years where I was running commanders' offices, which included 6 squadrons and 7,000 people. But yet people were like, well, we could give you a job answering the phones here for about $10 an hour. It was a real letdown for me to not be able to find a career that fulfilled me. As somebody told me about Instant Teams at a barbecue, and in a matter of months, I found out about Instant Teams in March. Through Instant Teams, I gained a scholarship to the Millspo Sales Academy. I'm sorry, the Millspo Academy. They've recently revamped and they have a lot more careers to offer. And it was a 5-week course. I didn't even know that a career in business development was a thing. I had no idea what business development was. Apparently, I had the perfect personality for business development. I guess I'm just really good at talking people into things. And so from there, they have a career center, and they legitimately hold your hand through all of your interview processes, applying for positions. And when you're entering a new career field, they make sure that you're applying for quality positions and not positions that are not going to be the best setup for you. And I want to say it was about 5 weeks after that that I got the position with Instant Teams, and it was my dream job. And it's been 9 months since then, and it has been, if Instant Teams had a uniform, I would be just as prideful about putting that on as I was about putting on my Air Force uniform. So finding that company that, again, aligns with your core values and that you can share as much pride in is great. Everybody within the company shares the same values and works equally hard. I'm sure everyone can understand when you go into civilian world and people show up 5 minutes late to a meeting and you're like, what are you doing? Like, you don't show up late to meetings. So again, that's where I talk about those core values and just finding a company that emulates all of them.
That's a really great point. I appreciate you sharing more information about your background, because I think what we're really showing our audience today is that success in a career, it's not exponential. It doesn't just keep going up. It's kind of like a tumbleweed where you go up and then you fall, and then you get a great job, and then, oh, childcare, and oh, you're getting out of the military, you're going to be free coronavirus, right? Like there's a lot of ups and downs and sideways. There's lateral moves. But at the end, we are progressing. It just looks more like a tumbleweed than a nice little graph. Amaris, what are your thoughts? How did you come into AWS and why have you stayed?
Yeah, so I actually came out of the military as a human intelligence collector, and ultimately that translates to, oh, good, you can go work more in government, and that's not what I wanted. So I was like, how do I translate this? This is not something with a TS clearance, and going out and doing all this type of intel stuff that I can do in the corporate world. So I started, looking at those skill sets and seeing what that translated into. Came across a couple job postings for a recruiter, and I was like, you know what, this actually sounds pretty similar, right? As similar as you can get in the corporate environment. So I started running like crazy to recruiter roles and got turned down and got turned down. You just don't have, to them, human intelligence collection, they don't either don't know what it is or don't have enough job in the industry. I'm sorry, don't have enough experience within the industry to be, competitive. And so when I was looking, I was starting to get a little frustrated, just like, I'm saying, don't do that. But after a while, I ended up at a job fair here in Washington State. And there was these Amazon military recruiters, and they had shirts just like this. I thought it was so cool because I was like, oh wow, not only are they recruiters, but they're military recruiters. They focus on veterans. That's awesome. That's exactly what I want to do, and that was going to be my goal for the next 5 years. And what I loved about sitting down with Amazon is a lot of folks, when I sat down at these job fairs, they kind of pointed me in the right direction, but they would say, hey, go take this cert or so on and so forth. They said, the recruiter I talked to from Amazon said, take this entry-level position. It's a recruiting coordinator role. It's scheduling interviews for the recruiting area, but you're going to get in front of all the right people. And if you use our leadership principles, which they explained those to me too, you'll grow. You'll move up fast. And so those leadership principles, as he was explaining it to me, one of them being think big, which I felt like I didn't have much of an opportunity to do in the military. I didn't, have the opportunity to say, hey, I have this great idea. Can we implement it? And people would just look at me like I'm dumb, right? But when I came to Amazon, everything they said was absolutely true. I was thinking big. I took I took a little bit of a pay cut. I stopped paying for cable and I took up just binging Netflix, right? I made a little sacrifice to take on that entry level role. And I busted my butt when I got there, and did all those things that the recruiter had told me to do, right? And then from there, within 5 months, I got picked up as a military recruiter. My goal for 5 years became true in 5 months of me taking on that opportunity. So they're not, and I'm not saying that's going to be the case all around always, but they're not wrong. I trusted that recruiter who told me that growth is possible, and I took that risk, and that's how I got into Amazon. It's just I felt he was trustworthy, from telling me that, and he was. He was ultimately absolutely right. You have the opportunity to think big at the company, and move up and grow and develop. So that's really what drew me there. Since that was my passion, that I wanted where I wanted to be for within those 5 years, and I got there, I've grown exponentially at this job, and I love that. I don't want to be stagnant, and they provide excellent opportunities. I went from the recruiting coordinator to an industry military recruiter. From there to a recruiter for these apprenticeship programs. I did that for a year, and then from there to become I did a client lead work. And then from there, I went into the program manager role. And I know that sounds like a lot, but they were always helping me figure out where I wanted to be next, where my growth was going to go. Okay, you've done recruiting for a couple of years. What do you want to do next? And I said, well, I love these programs that I'm recruiting for. Can I manage them? And sure, let's give you a shot. Why don't you give it a shot for a month? Tell me what you think. Do you like it? Is that your next career growth path? And I think Amazon's really, really good about developing you and providing you opportunities to skip around and try new things, which is what's kept me here, because I don't ever feel like I'm going to be stagnant. I'm constantly challenged, and that's why I've stayed.
That's really exciting. I got excited just listening to you. I love that. I got goosebumps when you said that, it was your 5-year goal and it happened in 5 months. I just think that is fantastic. Sometimes you put in the prep work for months and years, and then it falls into place immediately. It's not immediate. There is effort that you've been making this entire time. You asked the right questions. You went to the right place. Once you were there, you showed up. You didn't coast. You kept learning more and asking for more, right? And then those doorways opened for you. So I'm very excited about everyone here today. I think that you have made some wonderful points, and I'm thinking that some of our audience is going to want to continue this conversation after we've wrapped up and after we've lost time. So in about 30 seconds or less, can you tell us, the whole panel, how they can connect with you or how they can continue learning about your organization, and potentially have this conversation? Nicole.
Sure, I'll be more than happy to share my email address with everyone. If they're interested in career opportunities, they can visit Bank of the West ibmap.com/careers. But I'll leave my personal and work email. Again, I think it's all about networking and making connections. And although you may not be ready for a role now, you may be in 6 months when you're transitioning or when you've decided to make a career move. So I'm always available. I love to help whoever I can, whether it's now or in the near future.
Thank you, Nicole, and thank you, Amaris. If you guys have any contact information or a LinkedIn that you would like to share, go ahead and type that into the chat function so that they can take that home with them. Jose, what about you?
Oh, yep. So I was about to post my LinkedIn account as well. You know, I'm always on LinkedIn 24/7. Before working hours and after hours as well. On the weekends, I'm on there all the time as well, to be quite honest. So feel free to reach out to me, send me a question. Like I said, if I can't help you find a job here at Jacobs that fits your needs, I have a vast network on LinkedIn that I can direct you to depending on what type of job you are looking for. I'm always about helping veterans, military spouses, or honestly anyone who's looking for a job. I'll be more than happy to share your resume, your profile on my network in the hopes that someone reaches out. If you are looking for opportunities at Jacobs, I will post the link here shortly as well. Any position we have listed on our Jacobs career page is open. So if you are interested in specifically in one of those opportunities, you can apply directly and then just shoot me a LinkedIn message with the job title and the job ID, and I'll be more than happy to reach out to you and connect with the manager as well.
Thank you. And Suzanne, it seems like you are open as well, and you've posted your LinkedIn URL and your website. So for the audience, first off, again, I want to thank the panel. You guys have been fantastic, and I think that you all have some common themes. So I want our audience to kind of focus on these key takeaways. First off, with COVID-19, there is hope. All 4 of these employers are still hiring. It's still business as usual. This is not a time for us to kind of, I mean, we're sitting at home. Yes, that's the right thing to do. But you can still apply for jobs and continue attending events like this and learning more about the companies that fit your culture. You can do all networking online or over the phone. There's no need to do it in person. There is hope. So that's great. Continuing on, having a LinkedIn is important. And yes, earlier I mentioned clearances. What I meant was sensitive information does not need to be on LinkedIn. You can state that you have a clearance on LinkedIn. That's a great way for recruiters to find you for those clearance jobs. But we want to make sure that you're not putting any inappropriate information on there. But yes, having a LinkedIn is a great way to network and for recruiters to find you. I think all of our panelists today said transition is difficult. It's hard. You're kind of divorcing one culture and coming into another. So you have to, it is your responsibility to find the one that fits you, because you're not going to be happy if you're with a company that doesn't reflect your core values and where you're constantly having to adjust to their system. Additionally, I think Amaris made a great point about sacrificing for entry level. We all have to start off somewhere. Especially if you're transitioning from logistics to IT, you've got to start at the bottom. Even if you have 10 to 15 years of experience as the logistics program manager, not much of that is going to be relevant to a software developer. So kind of take that step back, see where you can sacrifice financially, and then go from there. I'm also available on LinkedIn. I'll put my my page out there, and then I'll put out Hire Heroes USA. I want to thank everyone, and I'm going to turn it back over to Elvis from the IBM.
Thank you, everybody, and I thank you, Amaris, Brianna, Nicole, Susan, and Jose. You were great. It's great. Thank you for sharing your experience, your insights about your companies and employers. Just let everybody know this is being recorded, and we will share our recorded link with you. So if you know anybody that can benefit from this webinar, please share with them. And also this will be on our IBMF YouTube channel as well. So thank you all. And if you do have a business and you struggling during this COVID-19, please join us for our IBMF webinar on April 22nd as we talk about taking care of your business during this pandemic. Thank you all. Stay safe and healthy, and we'll see you next time.